What should we put on today? Okay, just in case I don't get to writing it. How to write. Now, whatever you do, don't go to a creative writing course, degree, MA, university, whatever. Before anybody says anything, it's not like I have two styles of writing. I'm just in two modes. From 2010, let's just simply start with the one sentence, which is hard. This is hard because you don't wish this on your worst enemy. I don't have any enemies, but in 2010, I had a very, very tragic, abyss-like period for 3 years to start with. Wendell Berry wrote, and I can't find it on Google, but he did write it. What the poet needs is for the worst thing in life to happen and survive it. Now, of course, if you've got a brain, you'll know that, well, it actually doesn't apply to Wendell Berry. His poetry isn't very good. And I've had a look, and he doesn't even know that if he's going to talk about the environment, as he did on Radio 4 Start the Week 4 or 5 years ago, don't be up in the middle of the night talking about it, using unnecessary electricity and disturbing your natural sleep rhythm. Just say you can be on Radio 4, him based in America, and Radio 4 live on Monday morning. Do a recording to set an example to everybody. Anyway, let's keep to the point. Yeah, so Wendell Berry said this, and if he thought before he said it, I'm not sure he did, he should have said what the poet needs, meaning universally anybody who's creative or wants to have creative thought. And that doesn't have to be connected to ostensibly obvious art. It's in all sorts of fields of human existence. And it's true. It's true. After a year of that, even me, I wasn't creative at all. I was a diligent writer. I could write well. Before anybody says anything, I've written treatises in a Thomas Paine manner that have changed primary UK legislation. So you can bugger off. And anyway, I've got my Voltaire picture somewhere. Me rewriting Voltaire. A. B. In 2010, as a result of a lot of unpleasantness, nothing to do with me in fact, I started to write with no particular plan, and it ended up a great big, probably 500,000 word stream of consciousness, rather poetical creation, let's call it. And within 3 or 4 months, not planned, I didn't want any accolade, I didn't want anybody to say anything, but a very highly thought of nowadays professor of cinema, mother of 2 children, middle-aged, living in London, said or wrote, "I see what you're doing. I am beginning to see the deep poetry in what you're doing." So I can write, and I can. 2 modes. There's the kind of private letting go. I never promote anything to anybody ever, but there's a sort of private letting go, which I don't want to be private. But this is how to write. I don't want it to be private, but there's 2 aspects to that I'll come to in a moment. This is unplanned, by the way. I just turned my camera on and I had some thoughts in my mind that I was going to write down. But no, this licks itself up as it goes along. Now that sounds like you're off with the fairies. Not really. You have to do the work. You have to spend years pondering what you really have to say and what you think you have to say because of the culture, the bossocracy, the clever dickocracy who sort of... Anyway, if I die now, if somebody gets me, Megan Daum and her Unspeakable podcast is the only decent broadcasting I've come across, and I put that in for a reason which I'll probably remember to come to. Anyway, but even Megan gets it wrong. We'll come to that in a moment, or later, or another day. Yeah, how to write. Right. Don't go to somewhere that trains you to write. Okay? I mean, it's like in passing, but not really. If you're writing, which nowadays may include writing online, because anyway, I think most modern day writers are brainwashed that their publisher's only going to allow them the privilege of a printed book if they're going to be able to back it up with they're putting things out to attract attention on social media. Right, there's two kinds of expressing yourself, particularly writing online, but it was ever thus. 'Twas ever thus. Okay, if you're based in the cities, you can have largely anonymity. Mind you, get to be Salman Rushdie, and I'm afraid not. If you're based anywhere other than cities, and the great majority of the planet is still not really cities, small towns, suburbs, or in the countryside, and I'm sure this applies to all of Brazil, probably most of South America actually, you are not going to have anonymity, and the reality of the further one gets away from metropolises, the more bullying, backwards, unprogressive people get. And believe me, if they know that you write in a kind of modern universal human rights manner, they'll want to hurt you. Reality. So, myself, it's not a deliberate strategy, but just over the years I've adopted a few different hats, which some of them are quite anonymous and really need to be. But as good old Wendell said, well, he didn't say this, there's nothing better than someone screwing up your kind of long-held, thoughtful worldview of how you need to keep things in boxes, and then just saying, fuck it, let go, even if it is dangerous. Now, that's not really what I intended to say. What I'm about is, it's this tension. You see, I think George Eliot probably found this, that having to be slightly fearful of what one's saying in the provinces, figuring. It's not figuring because you don't figure. It's like you've got your eyes slightly in the headlights. You're expressing yourself despite them. It's like poetically putting things certain ways when you really mean it that way. That's fucking good for you. Do that for a few years, and which is actually why the whole of the heterodox thinking so-called intellectuals of the web, and virtually everybody has gone onto the web. I bet you all of them, all heterodox thinkers want to be Jordan Peterson. He's not heterodox at all, thank you very much. He's really, really backwards. Anyway, yeah, they've piled onto the web like, oh, we've got to attack wokeness, we've got to counterattack. No. It's much better for your creativity if I never use the word usually, but this kind of oppressive, tyrannical, judgmental, judging people by their words just via their fucking computer, right? If that's there, I mean, the Russians found this in the 1920s, 30s, 40s. Okay, if that's there, oh, your creativity goes to a different level. It takes a while, and it hurts, and you... Anyway, I'm not suggesting I've been oppressed. Actually, I have been oppressed in the same way as the Stalinist and then latter period of the Soviet Union, because you see, that's the point. The point is, when you actually have to exist, I mean, we're all in cages. You know, even me, and I'm the most roaming around free person I've ever met. Nevertheless, you have to come to do your shopping in certain places. You'll occasionally want to go and have an occasional beer in your cherished... Well, I haven't been back to... No, I don't go to the pubs anymore at all, ever. But in your 30s, 40s, you might want to not say anything about a certain locality because there's a pub where you met the love of your life and you want to reserve the right to go back there and nurse your lost love feelings over a pint. No, there's always a repressive ecosystem, unless literally you live in some sort of... and this is the great paradox or dichotomy of writing. Unless you live in some truly cosmopolitan city of many millions, and you can just confine yourself to the... well, in truth, they are so ambitious by nature of living there. Unless you can confine yourselves to circles of those who deep down, I mean, it's not really the right way of putting it, but they don't have a heart, so they don't care what you're writing. Whereas caring about what you're writing is what writing should be about. And anyway, cities have far too many mad people. I've lived in cities, but by the very nature, forget the people, or rather, just look at it from a farming point of view. Farmers know if you bring your stock up in a very noisy, air polluted or otherwise polluted environment, their health, the total health of a creature, will be far reduced. So, yeah, if you want to have good energy, and there's only one point in writing about how to live, as I've written, live in the countryside some of the time, or a good deal of the time. And if you live in the countryside and you have any kind of ordinary connection, just kids at school or whatever, you are being really judged continually. And unless, in fact, it's got worse the last 10 years, unless you conform, let's use the phrase just for the sake of, just as a shortcut language, there are two kinds of personae you have to conform to. Either you're allowed to get away with the Guardian colour supplement version because the ordinary people of the countryside, almost everywhere, know they make money from them. When their marriages fail, they end up getting their furniture on the cheap because they know that this is all a bunch of crap and doesn't actually sustain anybody. And then the other version is actually a very chavvy, almost Trumpian version. Let's not bring him into it. If I could think of... Yeah, there's this, the majority of people in the countryside, the ordinary people, the ordinary working people, they buy into the whole Kardashian, bling, Sopranos, bullneck version of life. And sorry, if you don't conform to that, you are... I mean, if I went out dressed like this, you got to have a sports top, you got, blah, blah, blah. If you don't conform to that, you are feared. And then there's the other there's three versions of how to exist. This is in Britain, but it applies to other European countries as well. Perhaps it's slightly more heightened in Britain. I don't know that. I'd love to know. Which is anyone who puts on sort of slightly expensive outdoor activity clothing connected with field sports, they get a free pass because no matter what they say in the pubs about hating the landowners or whatever, or they've got richer, no, they doff their cap. Yeah, why have I got that horrible little hat on? Because it was my daughter's, right? My new hat. Yeah, the deep down, the bling brigade doff their cap to money. They don't fight money because they know that, and I have so many very good examples of this. There is no resistance. There is no notion of rights. You can't even say the word rights in the provinces, in the countryside. That's the reality, and that's how the majority of people live. And I'm the luckiest person in the world because I've been forced. I can't stand any of them. They're so dull. But I've been forced, hanging around for a kid, to live among them. And believe me, that is the key to really poetic writing. To be in an environment that really, you know, it's not a case of you don't like, you know is so backwards, rather toxic, terribly bad for them, because most of them end up alcoholics, fat, drunk, angry, bitter. And they do. Okay, not in a crazy city way, but in a subtle country way. And it's the end of the world for me, because they're all boring. Suffering from any of those things. And nowadays, the last 5 or 10 years since everywhere in the media, oh, let's speak about our mental health. Yeah, mental health's a real thing. But now they all just define themselves, oh, it's like they've got license. And it's an excuse. It's an excuse to not get on with life or do anything new. Oh, I got depression. I got this. I got that. I got the other. It's just so boring. I'm going to go and live in the jungle, which I am. Have I forgotten anything? So, writing. Yeah, I can write properly, or rather, what's properly? I can write like Thomas Bernard. I can. I can write like Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I can write like Rachel Kushner. I can. But I have a different mode, which is when I'm just trying to. The other thing I've discovered, and this is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. The other thing I've discovered is the great majority, especially of those who come out to the provinces, they've spent their time in the cities, and they sell themselves as slightly educated, they've done things elsewhere. Oh my God, they cannot deal with it. It's very, very aggressive to them if you write in a sort of slightly poetical way to them, personally, by email or whatever else. Oh, no. I just laugh at it. I discovered this kind of about 7 or 8 years ago. No. That is like some personal attack on them. It's interesting, but it's ultimately dystopian. So why did I bring that in? Yeah, so some of the things that I've written are nothing. I never, ever post, link, spread out anything I write. And a fair amount of it, and I hate it, is written in a fair, what I'm doing is I'm trying to write things specifically for everything I've ever written is an invitation for somebody in person to collaborate. Forget online. Yeah. I wouldn't collaborate or trust anybody I haven't spent a fair bit of time with face to face, developing a proper real relationship with them, no matter what kind of relationship it is. Yeah, but I've had to write things, or I've tried to write things to share with specific people I've met person to person, inviting them to be a kind of loose collaborator, or just moral support, or just kind of loosely on team. And I so hate having to do that. I just do it in a kind of turgid way, not deliberately, because I just resent every moment I have to do this. Because the point is I have to do it that way. I can't write as I came to write 12 and a half years ago, which is with a certain amount of stream of consciousness. Not desperate, it's the exact opposite of desperate. It's celebrating the hunting the sublime through trying to communicate poetically. I can't write like that. to ordinary people I meet, or even the fairly well educated, because they immediately balk at it. And I'm the terrible person. I'm both cultures. I'm scientific, prosaic, rational, but also extremely literary in a kind of Gabriel Garcia kind of way, even a bit Byronic. But no, let's avoid them, because it's the women writers that interest me. Rachel Cusk, that she could have fluttered a little bit more crazy poetry in her words. Anyway, end of. Is that why I turned the camera on? Yeah. But believe me, and I know full well, I've read plenty of old tracts. I know full well that even your Shakespeares, even your Homer, but plenty of writers, no, the majority of writers over 3,000 years, these simple paradigms that I've communicated, they obviously apply to virtually everybody. There is no new way of writing. There are just, there's your framework, and that's that. But I also know if somehow, and I didn't plan to, I don't actually want to publish anything, because I've never met any human being in the 21st century particularly who's worth publishing anything for. And I mean it. That sounds horrible. That sounds, what's the word? Misanthropic. I'm not misanthropic. I've fucking well put 20 years. I've put everything. I've sacrificed everything to do law which benefits people, to also try and make environmentalism work in reality. Never believe anybody who says they're doing things in the environment, and particularly in this whole region I live, and I know it applies everywhere else in Britain. They're liars. I was listening to something a few days ago that said composers always have to have, the great composers have to have somebody in mind that they're individually speaking with. That's true as well. There's something you go to a new level when you have that. And I've had that the last couple of months, even though I'll never even speak with her again. So be it. Don't ask me what the deal is. Right. All the deal is that when it's going well, and it can go not really well for years, your energy, I was up 3:30 this morning, writing straight away as soon as I got up, your energy and organisational skills. Gotta go and charge my laptop up, phone now, this is 23 minutes. Everything is so damn organised. You kind of wouldn't have your life any other way. And it is a beautiful, drug-like, it's like love. It feels like love being in the writerly zone. It doesn't matter if ever anybody else pays you a penny, you don't want congratulation, or gives you accolade. It's like experiencing love when you're in that zone. I've had it so many times the last 12 and a half years, such that it's clearly not a mental illness. And the more you just let go into that, you get better at it. I mean, I just sit down, I have one or two things that I'm going to put in a blog. I don't like the word blog. I'm just going to write a kind of quick essay that I'm going to put online straight away in this thing called a post, which is not, I'm not posting it for anybody. It's just my online suppository of ramblings. And I have about 10 of them. I'll open the lid, I'll have to think, I want to put that one thing. And then an hour later, I just, without thinking at all, because I wish I could touch type. I can't touch type, but because I don't have any battery, don't have any plug, I just have to quickly and I just don't stop. It's just and it's just coming. I'm not even saying it's from anywhere else, but it's within me, if that's what reality is. And it's just and suddenly I'll start writing something that I hadn't even thought of for a year, And it's great. Sometimes it's not great. Sometimes it's hardly passable. But that's what you do. It's magnificent. And like, I wasn't in a brilliant mood when I woke up at 3:30 this morning because I didn't get my 8 hours sleep. But then after being there an hour, freaking hell, that's good. There you go. I think it is something that's fundamentally innate in the human condition, because I am the most average person in the world, even though a very, very atomized teenage years and 20s. Anyway, that's it. I'm not doing my memoirs at the moment, thank you very much. There's one person, no, actually there's two people on this planet I wish they'd write. They never will, because they know so much. Good old Socrates, he discovered we don't know anything. And I've discovered I don't know anything. I don't know what's going to get me. I mean, I'm sitting here. I've actually been technically broken down here for 5 weeks. I'm sure people are talking. I don't want to be here. Mind you, there is the most fantastic walk that starts half a mile up there. And there's a great bit of river here. But it's getting damp. It's beginning to get damp. My clothes are feeling damp. Blah, blah, blah. But I've been writing stuff better than last time I was stable in prior to having to do a huge house move a year ago. I've been like, it's just flowing. Not that it's for anything. There we go. Because everybody must assume and prejudge.